Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday service talk from Sunburst Sanctuary. My name is David, and I'll be giving the service today. The topic today is Live Mindfully, Conscious Conduct. And conscious conduct is one of the 8 paths of conscious living that we promote and practice here at Sunburst Sanctuary. And mindfulness is a spiritual practice that's really grounded in Buddhism as well as other spiritual approaches. But Buddhism has really become the premier or prominent vehicle for bringing about the awareness of mindful living and mindful awareness. When I think about these 2 ideas of conscious conduct and a mindful approach to living our lives, even though we might think of them as being from different philosophical approaches or different groups, there's much more similarity between them than differences. And this is typical with almost anything that we find in any religious approach or spiritual approach, that the differences that people seem to find between their faith and someone else's, many times, if it's looked at from a little bit different angle, can be seen as similarities. Paramahansa Yogananda, who was the teacher of Norm Paulson, who founded Sunburst, Paramahansa Yogananda, he wrote a lot of books and he gave a lot of lectures. And one of the things that he said that always stuck with me was that the best form of meditation is to practice the presence of God every minute of every day. And if we really reflect on those words, he's saying the same thing that the Buddhists are saying about living mindfully. It's that we are taking the opportunity with the life that we have to put our focus and our attention on things that will help promote awareness. And we have to sometimes slow ourselves down and really take a hard look around or a long look around at the beauty of nature or the beauty of our friends smiling at us and the light in their eyes, to be able to see that divine spirit, the creator of all, is shining and smiling upon us all the time in any direction that we look. And the perception of that divine being many times depends on the focus that we are putting on what we are looking at. And if we see differences between us and others, then it's more difficult to feel that connection and that unity that we have with each other and that we have with our Creator. But if we see similarities, then we find a deep connection that brings us fulfillment and happiness and love in our lives. When I think of mindfulness and a mindful approach to life, the thing that comes to my forefront are the practitioners of nonviolent activism who have lived on the planet for past generations and are here now as well. And the people who really come to the forefront of my consciousness are Jesus and Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and of course now in this current time, when I think of Martin Luther King, I think of John Lewis, who was an incredible, peaceful warrior of light, who lived his life with tremendous conviction, just like those others who came before him. And through the practice of nonviolent activism, was able to help improve the plight of many, many people in this country and hopefully on the planet. Another person that I'm familiar with that I think of is also Marshall Rosenberg, who developed and promoted the philosophy of nonviolent or compassionate communication. And these are just people that I know about that come to my mind, but I'm sure that there are literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of individuals who have lived on the planet and who have committed themselves over the centuries to approaching life with a nonviolent approach, to helping resolve conflict through nonviolent methods, to bring resolve to solutions through understanding and through compassionate care. There's a quote with today's service that I would like to read. Every morning we have 24 brand new hours to live, to bring peace, joy, and happiness to others, ourselves. What a precious gift. And this quote is by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I would like to devote a portion of this service to talking about Thich Nhat Hanh just a little bit. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with him. He's a monk who was born in Vietnam in 1926. And when he was just 7 or 8 years old, he saw a picture of the Buddha. And he could see from the picture the deep joy and peace and serenity that the Buddha had within his own being. And he realized when he saw that and he looked around that he didn't see that in the people that were living in his village where he was. And he thought to himself, that is what I want to do. I want to become a Buddhist monk. And roughly 10 years later, when he was 16 years old, he actually joined the monastic order and became a monk and devoted his life to understanding deeply the connection that he had within his own being to the great expanse of the universe, and to becoming a worker of light who could help promote compassionate understanding and peaceful approaches to conflict. And as it turned out, when he was in his late 30s, the Americans were joining in with the South Vietnamese in a war with North Vietnam for the possession of that country. And it was, as we all are familiar with, a brutal, bloody conflict. And Thich Nhat Hanh, along with his Buddhist community there, continued to promote the idea that peaceful resolution could still be reached, that reconciliation between the warring parties could be reached. But the warring parties on both sides were committed to one or the other being the victor in the end through violent warfare. And so the Buddhists were really kind of pushed off to the side. And Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thai, as his students would call him, or his friends, by that time he had become a really strong practitioner and was actually leaving Vietnam to do lectures in different countries. He had become proficient in about 6 languages, so he was very intelligent. And in 1966, he was in America, and he met Martin Luther King. And they had a great connection. They talked, the first time they talked for quite a while. And they talked about the similarity between the approaches that they had using nonviolent activism to try to help improve the plight of the citizens of their communities, their countries. And one of the things that they both really agreed on was how important it was to be connected to a community of people and to practice together. And you can see through Martin Luther King's efforts that he really had assembled a strong group of people to help promote the civil rights movement. And in Vietnam, Thai had the Buddhist community which he worked with, and there were many, many of them. And they realized how important it was to pull together for the common good of everyone. And actually in 1967, Martin Luther King nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. And he also came out publicly against the Vietnam War after having his discussions with Thich Nhat Hanh. And there was no Nobel Peace Prize awarded that year. But Thich Nhat Hanh told Martin Luther King that his Buddhist brothers in his Buddhist community in Vietnam referred to Martin Luther King as a bodhisattva. And that is a really high compliment from the Buddhist community, because it's basically saying that he had a level of enlightenment and that the work that he was doing, selfless work to put himself in harm's way for the betterment of others, is the very description of bodhisattva, that a bodhisattva comes to help liberate everyone on the planet and to not rest until that is done. And so these men, if we look back through history and we look at some of the people that I mentioned earlier, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Thich Nhat Hanh, these men were such incredible warriors of light, and it took such courage and a level of conduct that had to be rooted in deep consciousness in order to stay the course and be determined to help create social change and spiritual awareness for everyone around them, even when they didn't know if they were going to make it through the next day, if they might be ending up in jail, or they might be, or worse might happen to them. They might pay the ultimate price, which we all know Martin Luther King did. In 1966, when Thich Nhat Hanh was in America, the ruling faction in Vietnam decided that they did not want him there, that he was causing too much trouble, too much agitation against the government. And so they exiled him from Vietnam in 1966. And for 39 years, not until 2005, was he able to return. And he said that at that time, he was so sad and so lonely, and he missed his community of Buddhist brothers and sisters that he had been connected with, and he missed his homeland country of Vietnam. But he realized he had to really practice hard at that point. He had to make the deep connection within himself even more than he had before, and to develop other communities of connection around the world. And he went on to found a number of teaching centers in the United States and Europe. And the one that I'm most familiar with was founded in France, and it's called Plum Village. And from Plum Village, he ended up giving many, many lectures, and he actually wrote over 100 books. I have one of his books here. I just wanted to show it so you can see how his name is spelled. And this book is called Peace is Every Step. It's very fitting because his philosophy was that if we walk mindfully with every step, if we are aware that we are touching the earth, and we are aware of the connection that we have to all of eternity and to each other, and we bring that awareness into our walking, that is a walking meditation. And it goes right back to what Yogananda was saying about practicing the presence of God every minute of every day. All of the great enlightened teachers say the same things. They just say them in different ways. And the unity between all of these philosophies is much greater than any differences that anyone can ever find. So while Thich Nhat Hanh was at Plum Village, he did a lot of recordings where people would ask him questions and he would give answers. And you can see those if you're interested. You can see them on YouTube. I find them very, very inspiring because he is so thoughtful and practices a mindful approach to life with such ease. He has been doing it for so long. He makes it look easy. But one of the things in Plum Village is that there's a number of children that are there. I'm not 100% sure if they have a school there, but I know that children come there to stay for at least part of the time during the year. And I wanted to tell a little story that he shared about a mindful approach to resolving conflict. And he told a story about a young boy and his younger sister who would come to Plum Village every summer. And this boy had a hard time with his father. His father, it didn't appear that his father had a lot of compassion towards his son. And when this young boy would make a mistake or even do something clumsy and fall down, his father would, rather than show him compassion, would be critical of him and be harsh with him and even get angry with him. Why can't you just do things right the first time? Or why can't you be more careful and not make these mistakes, things like this. And this boy had said, when I grow up, I am not going to be like my father. I'm going to have compassion towards my children, and I'm going to teach them the mindful approach to life. And so one day, when this boy was about 12 years old, his little sister was playing with another girl in the yard there, and she had an accident, and she hurt herself. She did something kind of clumsy or whatever, and she hurt herself. And this energy came up within this young boy, and he started feeling very angry at her, and he was ready to go yell at her and tell her, "Why don't you be more careful?" Just exactly the way that his father had treated him. But this young boy caught himself, and he decided to go for a mindful walk instead. And he, through conscious breathing and through mindful walking and through viewing each step as a path to peace, he was able to dissolve this feeling that he had within him. And when Thich Nhat Hanh talked about this, he said, this is a remarkable achievement for a boy of only 12 years old, to take the practices that he had been learning at Plum Village and to stop the cycle of violence and of judgment that his father had been passing on to him. And more than likely, he had received it from his father, and him from his father. These things become generational. But what Thich Nhat Hanh said is that when one person can stop the chain of this type of behavior, it can reset the whole karma going forward for future generations. And so I thought that was a very inspiring story, just thinking that if a 12-year-old can have the awareness and the consciousness to bring these teachings into practice, into play, in the moment, then so can we. The things that we might have in our lives that trip us up, that cause us to become angry, we can, through compassion for ourselves and for others, we can turn that around, and we can create an energy that is helping promote conscious awareness on the planet. One other thing I wanted to talk about before we have our silent meditation is that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the importance of conscious breathing. And he said that many times, even though our body is present, our mind is not always present with our body. And that only when our mind and our body are present together can we really experience and express true love. And so he was saying that if we find that we feel disconnected, that our mind and our bodies feel disconnected from one another, that through just focusing on our inhalation, that within 2 or 3 seconds we can bring our mind and our body back in alignment with each other. And what he said is that when we do this, we actually generate love. What a wonderful idea, that through mindful breathing, conscious breath, we can generate love. And he was saying that a good way to especially for a beginner to become aware of their breathing, is to place their hand on their abdomen when they're doing their inhalations and exhalations, and to feel the breath rising and falling as our hand goes out with the inhalation and back in with the exhalation. Let's try that for just a moment together. Let's close our eyes and place our hand on our abdomen. And as we inhale, just feel our hand rising. And then with a pause for the count of about 3, then we'll exhale and feel our hand moving back down. Like anything, conscious breathing, breathing with mindful intent can take practice in order to become proficient at it. Let us take some time now to sit together and meditate. And we can use this simple practice of following our in-breath and our out-breath, and realize that as we're doing that, we're connecting more deeply internally with the divine mind of our Creator, what the Buddhists would call the Buddha mind, what Jesus would call the kingdom of heaven, what the Hindus would call samadhi. Just different names for the same conscious experience. So let's sit together now for a few minutes and have a meditation together. We've probably all heard the saying that the idea of men and women looking for God is comparable to a fish looking for water, in that we are comprised of and surrounded by God, period. Every minute of every day, from the beginning of time until the end of time. And if we think about all of the history of this planet and the indigenous cultures that have lived across the face of the earth that we know very little about, almost all of them, I'm sure, probably all of them, but many of them, because we've heard about them, they developed connections with divine intelligence through the connection that they had with nature and through their own teachings, which took them in maybe a little bit different directions, but all leading to the same place of awareness, conscious awakening for their people. And we know about the prominent teachers, some of which I mentioned today, and so many, many others who have come and helped promote goodness and connection and compassion for people on the planet. And we are so grateful to all of the teachers who have come to help throughout the ages. But also our attention and our compassionate heart goes out to all of the people, all of the souls who are on the planet, who are in deep suffering, who are not aware of this connection, who are living their lives believing that their only connection to life is through their personality, and they don't have the great blessing to know that through practice we can connect with a deeper love and a deeper joy than we can ever imagine through our self-conscious minds. So our prayers go out to all of the people across the planet who are suffering, who are in the darkness of ignorance, that they might find a little kernel of awakening that will help them find peace, that will help them become part of the conscious attempt on this planet to bring soul awakening for everyone here. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining today with this video, and we so much look forward to seeing you back here at the sanctuary when conditions will allow that to happen. Thank you.
Through the columns of infinity, I saw him walking, long white robe and humble gaze. His hair was flowing, the son of suns walks on the earth, a light unto before the birth of Adam. 'tis only thee, 'tis only thee, bright sun, 'tis only thee. His virtue wholly changed my life, pouring down on me to taste that cup of righteousness, filling all my soul. He filled me with his holy breath, river to the sea. Never more shall I taste death in eternity. Oh, my Lord, thy love is all around. Oh, my Lord, thy beauty doth abound. Everywhere I look, mine eyes do see. Everywhere I look, 'tis only thee, 'tis only thee, 'tis only thee, bright sun, 'tis only